Hello, everybody. Happy June 26th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, we'll be talking to a head football coach, first year for the NVL of the St. Paul program. His name, Christopher Kennedy, or how I like to call it, Mr. St. Paul himself.
How are you today?
Not too bad. It's beautiful out.
Thanks for having me.
You know, it's great to be able to have you on, Coach.
I appreciate being here.
Coach, before we get into the whole logistics and the program, and I really want to hit on Jude Kelly, I think first and foremost, how are you and your son, who is a football player for St. Paul, how are you guys dealing with the quarantine?
So dealing with the quarantine, I think has been challenging as a family for us, as it has been for everybody. All of the little issues that you normally deal with are kind of amplified through this situation, whether it's a family member sick or not feeling well or academics, all those things were amplified. So we did our best to work through them the way we always do. And we kind of take a sports type approach to things, you know what I mean? And sometimes you just got to put your head down and work. So I know my son at St. Paul, they kept a very high academic regimen as soon as this thing started. So it was important for us in our house to keep things as normal as possible during the school day. Mm-hmm. I work in the school system. My wife works in the school system. We have 3 children here that were all taking classes. So we kept things pretty normal until the school day was over. And then when it was over, we tried to do as many family activities as possible. I mentioned in the pre-interview, we decided to raise chickens, which we had never done before. And it's been a lovely experience for my kids, my wife, myself. So just kind of combining, keeping things as normal as possible, and also realizing that things are quite different. So you have to approach things a little bit different in that regard. So I would say work and academically has been kind of 9 to 5, but the family thing has been better because it's been more involved.
You think about it too, 2 benefits of this quarantine. One, you get to spend as much time with your family, and probably even more than you were in the past. And 2, think of all the money that you save with the chickens.
That's right. Well, we don't have eggs yet, but soon enough we will. So far they're just costing, but the investment's there. It'll work out.
You'll get there one day. Don't worry. All that money is going to be like, you know what? I got an extra $10 this week. Let's go out for ice cream with masks.
That's right.
With masks.
That's right. Milkshakes. I'm a big milkshake guy.
Are you? What kind of milkshake?
So funny story actually. During quarantine, one of the things that we've done is trying to try all of the local milkshakes. Mm-hmm. Right. So we've done all the local creameries around Southington. We're blessed. Southington has everything. So we did all the fast chains, and then we worked on all the mom and pops. So I'm in order to keep things even, I've gone chocolate at all of them. Straight chocolate, no whipped cream.
Really? Okay. See, I'm more Oreo and cookies or peanut butter.
Yeah, so I'm trying to stay consistent, right? You can't get cookies and cream everywhere.
No,
chocolate you can get everywhere. So
that's true.
Yeah.
But hey, you know what? Let's get right down to business, Coach. Okay. I really want to know a little bit about kind of your background. You keep mentioning Southington, and during the pre-interview, you mentioned how you are from Southington. You went to Southington. You're basically born and raised in Southington. Just tell me about your background, and then what kind of led you into coaching.
Okay, so born and raised in Southington, like you said. My grandparents on my mother's side were, came basically from Ireland with a brief stint in New York, and then came right to town. So my family's been in Southington for generations. I played for Coach Kelly in the mid-'90s at Southington High School. Had a great experience there. It was kind of where Southington football kind of became Southington football, right? There was a period early in history before my time where they were dominant. And then there were a bunch of years of mediocrity. And then Coach came in when my older sister was in high school. And you immediately kind of saw things start to change. And luckily I was there 94, 95, 96, played in the state championship, lost to Hartford Public in my junior year. And then right after I graduated, Southington football just kind of took off. Coach D'Amelio, took the offense to the next level, and Coach Kelly brought some great coaches in the program, and kind of the rest is history from that standpoint. But obviously, raising my children in Southington, we've been involved in the youth program here. So all those kids that are seniors and juniors, I know very well. I think of them in a very high regard. So yeah, we're rooting hard for Southington football to make a splash this year at the state level.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think when you look at a program like Southington, just like, how people view St. Joe's, how they view Hand, you can't view those programs without thinking of the stout coaches, the guys who kind of laid the foundation, have been able to be that consistent. And now I think it's even more of a successful ride that Southington has had to be able to show like they can withstand losing a great coach, but because the foundation was shown and basically Coach Kelly said, okay, this is how things are run in a proper way. You've seen what Southington's been able to do since he left.
Yeah, and I just want to say that is absolutely zero slight to Coach Drury, because Coach Drury has actually taken it to another level. Correct. They're doing things now that we weren't even doing in the 90s with the workouts and the year-long commitment that those kids are making. I think Coach Drury actually got kids to buy in at another level. Mm-hmm. So it's exciting to watch.
No, Coach Drew, again, no disrespect. He's, like you said, taking it to another level. He's somebody I want to get on this podcast sometime in the near future, because he's another guy in Connecticut that I think people, again, they think of all the top schools, but I think Southington needs to be one of those schools that's mentioned, because Coach Drew, as you said, the way he's able to look at workouts and offense, or just a team aspect. The two players I talked to from Southington, the quarterback Brady, and then the offensive lineman Andrews, they spoke so highly of Drury. I can kind of see it in their eyes that they respect him. Whatever he says, they will do.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and I think he will. Luckily, he's a young guy, and he will continue to, for years to come. And just to touch on that, just coaching in general. You had asked before, and I didn't really go all the way in terms of what got me into coaching. Mm-hmm. And guys like Coach Kelly and Mike Drury, and I had a lacrosse coach when I was young by the name of Ken Villar. I had a middle school coach by the name of Mike Ungaro. These guys were great people to me as a person, right? So they fed me things that I needed in my life. And through the process of that and seeing how important it was to me, that's why I wanted to get involved in coaching, because it had such a profound, these men that didn't have to, they were all volunteers. These men had such a profound impact on my life. I felt like if I could have, a fraction of that impact on hundreds of kids, then, you're helping make the world a better place.
Now, I know we mentioned during the pre-show about how you kept bugging Coach Kelly. You want, 100 times, and the 101st time he finally said yes and gave you an interview. Just kind of take me into that process when you were trying to become a coach with St. Paul with Jude Kelly.
All right, so the process actually started years earlier. When I came home from basic training, I knew immediately I wanted to get into coaching. And in typical Coach Kelly fashion, right? So you got to earn everything. So he says, I come in and I'm gangbusters. I'm ready to go. I want a whistle. I want, varsity position. And he says, oh, great. I'm glad that you're excited. I have an offensive line position with the freshman program open. And I was like, okay. I wasn't an offensive lineman, but it'll give me a foot in the door. And so I jumped at that, and within a couple weeks, I was actually running the defense. And that's kind of how Coach Kelly does things, right? Is he always wanted you to show that you could do the job, right? And kind of prove yourself before he was going to say, okay, you are the offensive coordinator. I think I called plays for like 4 or 5 games before he actually said the words offensive coordinator to me. You know what I mean? And I'll be honest, I think that's it's a great way to do things, right? To ask people to prove something before they are awarded it, right? There's value in that.
It must have been really special, because not only did you play for him, but you also were a part of his staff for a number of years. And was there anything that you noticed? And I understand the player aspect, you're around him a lot, but as a coach, you're with him 10 times more than you would be as a player. Was there anything to you that maybe you didn't notice as a player that you did as a coach that really jumped out to you from Coach Kelly?
That's a great question. I would say that there's certainly a lot of things in his, personality that you get to see when you become a peer of someone that you don't necessarily get to see as a coach. Like, little things. I didn't realize that, how funny he was, and he kind of has coach's humor, right? Where sometimes we're the only ones that get it. Sometimes we're the only one that laughs.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, that I really cherished, especially over the last few years, is how much he cares about his kids. There are, obviously, I was involved in Southington for years. I was involved at St. Paul for, 15, 16 years so far. So there are a lot of kids that I was involved with, but
Mm-hmm.
especially at Southington, there were kids that I maybe knew their name, but didn't know, much about them. And, he had so many stories about kids and situations and times that they brought a smile to his face, and getting to sit back and watch him, the joy that those kids brought him was a different side that I saw as a coach that I didn't necessarily see as a player, is how much he genuinely enjoyed all of the interactions that he's had with kids over the years.
And you can see that even, you were on the staff, you were on the sidelines. He still had that fire all the way until the last game that he coached. And I think, I mentioned this on the air for the few games that we were able to broadcast on WATR for St. Paul or of St. Paul games against various opponents in the NVL. And I mentioned, either during halftime, pregame, or if I was broadcasting the game, if I had an opportunity to at that young age when I was interning, I said, hey, this guy may be in his, not to say he's in his 20s. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
We'll say he's in his 20s and be nice. But he had a fire and passion, man. He still had it all the way till the end.
One thing that he, used to say about me, because I coach with passion. I'm a hard on my sleeve guy, and I coach the same way I parent, the same way I work with my kids in school, right? I mean, I get excited. And it's gotten me in a little bit of trouble here and there. And so when I got to go into the boss's office with my tail in between my leg and, apologize for getting on an official or something, he'd always say, it's a lot easier to control passion than it is to create. Meaning that if you don't have the fire in your belly when you wake up in the morning, you're probably not going to have it in your belly when you walk on the field. And if you don't, you obviously can't expect your kids to. So he kind of let me go with some of that stuff because he understood what the passion is, where it comes from. And he always had it, even in his moments where he seems reserved, right? That passion was always burning in the boss.
I think it's one of those quotes that, you mentioned that and it rings true in so many ways. Another thing I want to ask is, I know that St. Paul, prior to him coming, I know that there were some hard years with St. Paul. I know that the even attraction of getting players to play was also difficult. And again, I hate to keep bringing the past up. I know with St. Paul, there was, with those difficult times, when I heard that there was a lot of lacrosse players playing football, that kind of jumped out to me. And only because when I think of lacrosse players, I don't think of football and lacrosse in the same sentence. So where does that kind of, teach me a little bit here? I know I see it, so kind of teach me here. Tell me.
So I wore this on purpose because my lacrosse booster club president said, I know he's on Twitter, said, I know he's going on to talk football, but maybe he'll shout out lacrosse. So I'm glad for the question, and I did wear this on purpose. So it's incredible crossover between football and lacrosse. Coach Kelly actually saw that right away. His relationship early in the years when Coach Pasqualoni was at Cheshire, and Cheshire was starting to go in lacrosse, and just kind of how those two sports in terms of the endurance, how one could really feed the other. So I was different. I started playing when I was young. Like I mentioned, Ken Villar, one of my heroes in my life. Unfortunately, he's passed several years ago. But He introduced me to the game of lacrosse, and his whole thing was this game needs to be shared, right? The Indians call it the medicine game, the whole thing. This thing needs to be shared. And he always talked about a responsibility to grow the game.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was involved with Coach Kelly at St. Paul in the football program, I saw immediately how lacrosse was growing at the youth level. I started my son in baseball because I played both. And I thought the kid would have been a good third baseman. And he came home and he said, "No, Pop, I want to play lacrosse." And I wasn't really with it to begin with. And my wife said, he's going to do whatever he wants to do, right? So, and when I got involved in coaching and I was using my football skill set, right, to coach lacrosse, it was like hand in glove. It just fit. So then I became super involved with my son's youth program. Mm-hmm. And my wife gave me the okay eventually to look for a high school position at any level. I really didn't foresee myself necessarily being a head coach in lacrosse. There was a vacancy at St. Paul right when I told them that I was available. And it just happened. It worked out. And, we've had great success in a short period of time. And it's really just implementing the football structure that I learned from Coach Kelly in terms of program building and how you go about building a culture. And I took a lot of the things that we did in football, gave it kind of my own twist, and it's worked so far. But I think football, as you know, is in trouble across the country. And I think lacrosse can do more to help save football than I think any other sport. Because there are so many ways that the two sports coincide. And the other thing about lacrosse that I just want to tell you is that it's a great sport if you're a football player, if you're a wrestler, if you're a basketball player, right? I mean, my offense is a motion basketball offense. The principles in defense, I coach for Team Connecticut in the off season. I was working the other day with a group of defenders. I was teaching them how to backpedal like a corner, close distance like a linebacker, and then drive like an offensive lineman. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a lot of crossover right there.
I really want to hit on that because I haven't had an opportunity to be able to talk to a coach who not only is a football coach, but also knows the in and outs of lacrosse, which you do, and I want to take advantage of this. When I think of sports that kind of connect that maybe you wouldn't think, and I wrote these down, rugby compares to football for various reasons. You also have cricket, which compares to baseball in America. And then now you have what could be something with what St. Paul is doing, and I'm sure other schools are doing this, but I just haven't been able to find them yet, lacrosse to football. So kind of tell me more about this connection with lacrosse and football.
Well, absolutely there is the connection. And really, you don't have to go any farther than let's take a look at some of your best football programs in the state. Let's take a look at Darien. They've had a run of time where they're a top 5 program in the nation in lacrosse. In Connecticut, when you bring up Darien, a lot of people just want to talk about football. St. Joe's. I'm a big believer, right, that in coaching, if you're not trying to mimic the best that are doing it, you're not really trying. You know what I'm saying? So I look at St. Joe's and, I reached out right away to Coach Talbot, their lacrosse coach, and I wanted to schedule them, which was crazy when you look at where St. Paul lacrosse was versus St. Joe's. But I wanted to see firsthand, what are they doing? How are they doing it? And through following them and watching them, I started to see really that crossover of kids, If you're a lacrosse kid, there's value you can bring to a football team. If you're a football kid, there is value you can bring to a lacrosse team. So that's really St. Joe's and Darien. Those were the ones that I looked at and said, we've got to try and use one sport to fuel the other and vice versa.
And I just want to piggyback off of that because I think that's another part too that could make the game of not just lacrosse, but also football grow. Because if you can show, and maybe it starts with St. Paul and others, other various programs. You mentioned Darien. I mean, you mentioned others as well that can kind of maybe help with this. If you can show that, especially now with social media, if you can allow these kids to see with their own eyes that what they're doing on a lacrosse field translates to football and vice versa, you could very well not just save the sport of football, which, as you mentioned and I've seen as well, is taking a big time hit for various reasons, but you
Yep.
could the game of lacrosse, which has grown. I'm not saying it hasn't, but just think about it could become now maybe instead of being one of the outside of the top 5 sports, now you could slowly move it into like when people think of basketball, football, baseball, soccer, now you can maybe have lacrosse.
Absolutely. And to be honest with you, I believe that's where it's going. I really do. I mean, even if you look, you know, I don't know if you have heard of the PLL. It's a professional lacrosse league that a player started, right? And right away they instituted all the things that players are looking for, like, you know, lifetime health care and real profit sharing and things like that. So, and they were the first major sports program to come up with a deal to play now, right? They were on PLL Island before baseball struck a deal, you know what I mean? With the exception of maybe golf. But so they're on PLL Island right now, getting ready to go on tour and play a season. And I'm hoping that this opportunity in this time when there is so little going on for live sports, I'm hoping that more people will watch a game. And I'm telling you, and I've said this to many people, and so far it's at a very high success rate. If you watch a lacrosse game, you will be hooked. If you watch a quality lacrosse game, there's so little to not like. It's fast-paced, it's action-packed, it's physical, it's exciting. You know, it's got the fast break of basketball. It's got the physicality of a football and a rugby. And it's got the game plan and preparation of football. And it's got the free-flowing and also kind of some individual flair of like a basketball. That, let's be honest, a great football team has very little individual flair. So lacrosse is an opportunity for all kinds of kids to get very similar structure, but with a different kind of mentality, a different kind of outlook, perspective.
You know, I think time will tell if, you know, they will take advantage of having what is very little sports right now. Hopefully they can, if the sport can grow. Now we know for you were able to take advantage of your time with Jude Kelly. And now, and this is the main part, I'm getting right to the bread and butter. You're the head coach for the St. Paul Falcons. Now, what was the interview like?
So it was good. It was interesting. I'll tell you, it wasn't easy. You know, they asked me some tough questions, but that's what you should expect in such an important position, right? I mean, I in no way, shape, or form expected to walk in and them say, you know, here's the keys. So they asked me some tough questions, but again, that's what I expected. I think that I did certainly have an advantage because I do understand and love St. Paul Catholic, right? We talked, especially in the pre-interview, extensively about my background in Southington, how I'll always be a Southington fan. I mean, but St. Paul is truly my home, and it's all aspects of it, right? So I understand and appreciate the spiritual aspect of the fact that it is a school of faith, and you know, I use verse in the locker room when it's appropriate.
Really?
And lacrosse, I found times where it was appropriate. For lacrosse, my team goes to church together on Sunday mornings before we go to practice. So that's certainly one huge aspect that you have to appreciate, I think, in order to be successful at a school like St. Paul. The other thing that I learned to understand is that academics has always and will always be number one in that building, and that's fantastic, right? That's why I wanted my son to go there. You know what I mean? So I understand that, and I understand there are times where kids just aren't going to be able to be at practice because they have an academic requirement that they've got to meet? Are we trying to limit those? So are we trying to make sure that they're taking care of their business on time so those are limited? Sure. But we also understand that sometimes things happen and you just have to let that go. And I would say the final piece is understanding the challenges of small rosters. I've been living it for 15 years. So understanding that we're going to have a smaller roster than every school that we play. We were, and I believe still may be, the smallest school in the state that has their own football program. And that's not a complaint. That's a source of pride. You know what I mean? That's a source of pride that we're going to do it. We're going to do it by ourselves. And those of us that take part are gonna get something out of it that you can't buy.
And I also want to add into, I think, the community aspect as well, is because now with you, instead of going, and I'm not saying if they chose somebody outside that the community would not support the person, but I think being able to have somebody who they've seen every day for a number of years, they've seen their kids now who are in the program, and then, just that connection, I think, can really bode well as far as however long you're with St. Paul for, because you just don't know what could happen in the future. And maybe, just maybe, more kids can come over to football over time.
Yeah, I mean, we need to, and when I was asked by the newspapers, what my first job was in terms of, getting the program, back to where we want it to be, it's bodies, right? There are, and this is where I say I look at the St. Joe's model, in terms of being a small school that's super successful at both football and lacrosse. And it's really, in a large degree, it's getting the people that can help the program in the program. And we're not there yet. And what did we get hurt by COVID hitting as soon as I got hired? Yeah, a little bit. I wanted an opportunity to speak to the entire student body, about what it is. Because it really, I think a good football program can be the most unifying piece of a small Catholic school. And that's my goal, is to have it be a unifying factor and let everybody in the school know that as a football program, we're here to support the cross country team and the soccer team and the basketball team and the softball team and everybody else. And we want the same, and we're going to show that first and then hope that it reciprocates back to the football program. So that's still going to be the plan. And that's what we're working for. Because if we can get some of those kids on that basketball roster, some more of the kids on the basketball roster onto the team, some more kids on the baseball roster on the team, I think that we could really surprise people right away. You
also have to look at the fact that you're not in the Copper division, which, you always had Ansonia, and typically, depending on what, every 4 or 5 years, you would have a good Seymour team. Woodland was very good the last couple of years, but now because of the whole switch and everything, Woodland went over to Copper. You're now with Iron, you're in the Iron division, so you're seeing a Wolcott team, a Naugatuck team, a Watertown, very, very competitive teams. And Torrington, can't forget about them with Coach Gayton. So
Coach Gayton's the man. I really, really, really like him.
No, Gayton's one of the better guys in Connecticut. He's actually coming on my show in July. And
oh, great.
So I think it's going to be great. I tried to get a bunch of NVO coaches. I was able to get Gian Petrucci on from Holy Cross. So
yeah, he's another great guy. We got great coaches in the NVL. I'm sad to see Salazzo go. I think he was great for the league. He was great for Naugatuck. Coach Brockett, obviously. Talk about wanting to emulate someone. What I would give to be able to watch an Ansonia practice. You know what I mean? Good luck with that. But Coach Brockett's a great coach. Coach Gian Petrucci, really the whole league. So yeah, I'm excited. I like our division. You're right in what you're saying about Seymour. We never played an average Seymour team. Every time we played Seymour, they were a good football team. We've had Ansonia on our schedule for quite almost every one of our years, and this is going to be the first. This may be the first year. Maybe there was one other. I don't know. But we don't have Ansonia on the schedule this year. But here's the other side of that coin, right? So, again, I played in Southing for coach during the resurgence, right? Mm-hmm. And our preseason scrimmage was Greenwich, We had Notre Dame of West Haven on our schedule when they had Tarek Salih. We played Xavier when they were, crushing people. And I remember asking him, why do we do that, Coach? Why are we going to play Greenwich the week before the season starts? And he said, our conference is what it is. And you'll never know if you have what it takes unless you go out and play the best teams. And there's nothing worse than making it to the dance to get clobbered, right? So you want to see those great teams. So I never, I'm certainly not against playing an Ansonia. I want to earn the right to play them again. And in order for us to play them again, we've got to be good over the next 2 years. So that's my goal, right? I want Ansonia again, but I want them because we earned it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great attitude to have. I really do. And again, going back to to the divisions again, the Honor Division, I even still think with Salazzo gone, you're still going to get the best out of Naugatuck. Watertown, Torrington, and Wolcott are basically, because I live in Watertown, basically all hotbeds as far as football is concerned in that division. And then it's tough, man.
Do you know Coach Cianciola?
Oh, Coach, yeah, I went to school with him. I went to school with him.
So he's our strength and conditioning coach. He's the man, and he's a Watertown guy, right? So I get that, and that's one of the things that's interesting about the Valley is all of the towns in the NVL, they're all steeped in pride. Whether or not the tradition is year in or year out, the pride is there to the point that you're gonna have a run of good years, right? So there's nobody in the NVL that I will look at and be like, oh, well, that's a win, that's a win. You can't do that in this league because the towns have too much pride. And as soon as you do that, you're in trouble.
And not just that, too. You also have to look at, and that's great that you see it, from your standpoint as a coach, the numbers are not as high as other schools. Even the schools in Waterbury, when you consider, I know Crosby and Wilby had a nice season last year, but even Sacred Heart, the numbers are down for them, or not down, but the wins are not there, but they still at least have the numbers. So you kind of have to look at it like, well, I don't have as many bodies, so I need to be careful with, I have to instill into the kids that I don't care what their record is. You have to go into each and every game like you have a chance to lose, because if you take it look, there was a game, what was it, last year, Wolcott and Holy Cross. I mean, you had a game where Holy Cross needed a win. Everyone thought Holy Cross was going to demolish them. And then look what happened. Wolcott spoiled the party. Holy Cross was home.
They're all rivalries, right? They're all rivalries in this league. Not everybody is Naugatuck and Sonia playing on Thanksgiving, but every matchup has its history, right? Every matchup has its with us in Derby coming in, and we were the new kids on the block, and our first year in, we made the tournament, and we were marked for years after that, where everybody, our first year in NBL, everybody was going to give us our best. And I thought at first that was why, right? Like we came in and kind of crashed the party. And then I realized that's just how NVL football is.
I really do believe, too, that I think people need to start understanding that St. Paul has a lot of very good to legendary coaches. You think about Coach Phelps with the basketball program for the boys' side, the baseball coach who was and this is going back, when I was 16, he was my Legion coach, my junior Legion coach.
Okay.
So when I was playing baseball, so I was a young baseball player, and Coach Rinaldi taught me everything that I could at that time. And I wasn't one of the better players. I was average to maybe below, and I will admit that I wasn't very good. But he made me better. And after that season, when the program disbanded, I never forgot what he did for me at that young age. So it's one of those things where, and now you take the mantle with the football program for Coach Kelly, and I think you're going to carry that, and not like you're going to replace him and be like, I'm the coach, forget Kelly. No, you're just going to add a little bit more, but make sure that his memory as far as the coach is still there.
Yeah. So, again, we talked, Coach Kelly is a monumental figure in my life. As long as I am around, people are going to know all of the great things that Coach Kelly has done for me and for the state of Connecticut football and kids in general. So yeah, that's absolutely true. We have a very, very good administration. at St. Paul, and they take athletics very, very seriously, and they don't rush things, right? So I remember when they were looking for a baseball coach, and they were not just going to fill it with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding the community, as we talked about before, is very, very important to our administration. And I think you see that in the types of coaches that we have. Like you mentioned, Coach Phelps. My son plays basketball for him. And, he's a builder of men, much like Coach Kelly is.
Agreed.
I don't know Coach Rinaldi as well, but I've seen, my nephew played for him. I've seen the product. You know what I mean? We practice near each other. My kids will come up if they're in a close game and watch a little bit of theirs. And their kids got to walk by our field to get off, and they stay and watch some of ours. So, I think the school's done a great job of finding those builder of men type people like Coach Phelps, like Coach Kelly, and like you said. I mean, obviously, from the impact that he's had on you, our baseball coach is doing the same thing. So that's good to hear.
Coach Kennedy, I really do appreciate you coming on. We've just about run out of time, but I could talk to you forever. I mean, just going back, we could talk about Coach Kelly. We could talk about the NVL. I'm hoping you can come back on sometime in the near future.
Yeah, we definitely got to have that triple option talk, man.
Definitely. You got to get Coach Kelly, talk to him. Just tell him, hey, I had fun. There's this nice guy. He's 27. He broadcasts games. Come on.
Well, here's the only thing. Coach is not technology is not his strong suit. So we may have to wait post-COVID and have that in person. Or maybe I can get him into the office and do it from there.
That's fine. Hey, whatever works. I will work with Coach Kelly. Trust me.
Okay. Yep.
But hey,
awesome.
Appreciate you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everything you're doing for Connecticut high school sports, especially with the kids, putting them out there. I think it's great what you're doing, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate that.
All right, buddy.
Up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.